Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be for the 7 of you who are still into Helium. We have a lot of updates here. There's been a ton of changes with the rewards, especially on the mobile side. They've been going up and down. We're going to talk about what the hell's going on and why they're going to change yet again tonight, actually. So we're going to talk about that change, who it's going to affect, and we're going to just shotgun through a lot of these big news events because there has been a ton lately, okay? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So there has been a ton of changes with the rewards, especially on the mobile side. They've been kind of bouncing all over the place. There's been a lot of hips. So we're just going to kind of catch up a little bit. So the first big one that did cause quite a few changes, it's HIP 131. And this is the HIP with the CDRs. Okay, so this extension of HIP 125, when implemented, will be limited to Oracle Hex Boost within POIs that are currently designated as A and B. So those guys in the ideal areas, for example, mine is in a residential area. Primarily, there's a few hexes that are A and B, but mine's a designated C area. So because of that, I didn't get affected by this, although didn't get affected by this yet. Expect this to eventually continue, potentially down the road to everybody. So it is kind of important, even though it didn't affect all of us. So rewards for mobile hotspots that engage in malicious activity to earn the higher multiplier rewards of Oracle Hex Boost or hotspots that have no CDRs will be reduced to Oracle Hex Boost multiplier of 0, meaning they're earning nothing for POC. Okay, so essentially what this is, you had to pretty much have a CDR, which is classified as a call, text, or message, and data transfer over the network to kind of just verify your hotspot or antenna. So this had a pretty massive effect because the primary goal here was to get rid of a lot of the gamers. Okay, so there's a lot of people gaming the system, just like back in the IoT days. The difference here is that they are trying to get ahead of it as much as possible. So yes, this HIP was a pain in the ass for a lot of people, but it did help quite a bit because rewards did go up pretty significantly because it did boot a lot of them off. Okay, if you guys went through the planners, you can kind of see a lot of them. See a lot of strange ones, like especially in airports. I think that was the most like egregious ones. You would literally see hotspots that were supposedly on the freaking tarmac getting those, multipliers, okay, which was all bullshit, and it got rid of a lot of those. So this did also negatively affect a lot of people who weren't gaming the system, specifically the CBRS radios. They had a hell of a time trying to get that CDR. It's a lot easier for the Wi-Fi guys, especially if you already have Helium Mobile as a service. It's a lot easier. Like for me, for example, when they do this one, it's going to be zero issue because I do have the mobile service. So that is a non-issue for me as it rolls out, because I do fully expect it to eventually roll out to everybody, right? So they're going to do these things in phases to kind of see the effects, see how things are going, because this is going to give us a better idea of how much gaming is actually going on. Okay, so that was one of the first big changes. Now the next one is HIP 135, and the reason this one was implemented, and it was implemented extremely quick, well actually before HIP 135 was implemented, they did just change it to templated coverage just because of what happened with Google's API. So let's talk about it real quick. So on 9/26/24, Nova Labs discovered an outage in the Google Network Planner service that was essential for the creation and maintenance of coverage objects. They immediately implemented a templated coverage fallback for deployments that required new or updated coverage objects. Subsequently, this templated coverage began to be deployed to all hotspots on 10/4/24. So that's why there was such a big change on that date. Okay, so some people benefited massively, some people didn't. Just kind of depends on your situation and your radio. Like for example, for me, I have 2 of the outdoor Wi-Fis. One is an extremely ideal setup. Again, I kind of mess around with the planner to try to like point it in the direction that's going to get the most coverage. One side, extremely good coverage, covered a lot of hexes. The other side, not so much. So this really affected those Wi-Fi outdoors that did cover a lot of hexes. So like one of them, the best one for me, got cut like in half. The other guy only got affected about 10-15%. Essentially, they just kind of made it a flat rate for everybody. Similar to like how the coverage points for the indoors work, where it's that flat single hex, right? Kind of the same style here, and it's based on the amount of coverage points your actual device gets, which each one gets different. It's the indoor, the outdoor, and the different CBRS models. Okay, so that was a big change. So that happened just because of that Google, their API kind of went out of service. So because of that, they had to do this quickly and they decided to just do it that way. Now with HIP 135, it is kind of fine tuning a little bit and it is going to affect quite a few people here. Okay. So further onto this topic, they did make it loud and clear that they are not going to be looking for another provider, because that was a common thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, they're just going to work on another one. They're going to get another one just to bring modeled coverage back, because that's what the difference is, and they are not, right? So this is something that they were going to transition to most likely anyway. This just kind of sped up the process, because remember, the end goal here is eventually to get rid of proof of coverage rewards and just incentivize those who are actually helping to grow the network. Okay, so this is something that they've kind of hinted aggressively that is eventually going to happen, and this is just kind of speeding up the process. Okay. Now, as far as for the changes specifically to HIP 135, because you can see here the current change, it brings the Wi-Fi outdoors to 1,000 CPs, the buy-sells 430s to 1,428. We highlighted those two because those are the two that are going to get affected the most here. So as of tonight, like today's rewards, today is the 24th. So today we're going to see a pretty big increase for the Wi-Fi outdoors. So they're going to go from 1,000 coverage points to 1,760. And the other one who's going to get affected massively are the 430s. But for the 430s, those CBRS guys, in a negative light. They're going to go from 1,428 coverage points down to 795. Okay, so they are going to see a pretty big difference. They're going to get cut pretty bad, and again, it's just because they're going by who's actually benefiting the network the most. And it's currently, as they made loud and clear for the past year, it's the Wi-Fi's. Why? Because they are the only ones who can currently offload data, which is their goal, right? At the end of the day, that is the long-term goal, is to offload that data for these service providers and grow the network in that fashion, in that capacity. Okay, so you're going to see these effects tonight. Does it translate exactly one-to-one? Not necessarily, because remember, these rewards are all from one big pool. It's going to get jumbled around. We'll get a better idea tonight, as far as what the future rewards are going to be, and it's just kind of is what it is kind of thing. Okay, so this is what it's going to be for now, but again, fully expect it to just continue, right? For them to eventually just get rid of the PLC rewards one day. What timeline? No idea. Could it be the next few months? Who knows? Could it be the next 6 months, year? Who knows? Maybe sooner, maybe later. But just they've made loud and clear that's the eventual point here. So that's why it's hard to recommend these things. Still getting asked, is it worth it? Again, if you're in a good area, you're in a heavily congested area, if you're able to put this thing in a business, in an urban downtown setting, again, mess around with the planner. If you're in one of those areas, then yes, that is definitely where they are targeting. That's definitely where the money is going to be. If you're in a residential area, you could still potentially make out a bit, but again, the time to get in was when we first talked about it, when we first got in, and it did extremely well, and it's still continuing to do well. But I'm fully with the expectation that this may not last a whole lot longer until at least we can offload data, until they make that open to everybody. And then in that case, I do feel like mine will still do well just because it is near a school. There is a lot of traffic behind me. At least one of them will do well, and then the other one is pointed near a running track in a gym area. So that one may actually do well also if they eventually open it up to everybody, or if it's just going to be limited to where the service providers want, which it does seem like that's going to be the case because, again, they're paying for that. Okay, so pretty big changes here. Again, that's a big blow yet again for those CBRS guys, which currently made out well, though. A lot of them did get a huge bump up with this thing, just depending on how much you were making, where your location was, etc., etc. But again, they're trying to incentivize those who are actually benefiting the network, which has been the case, and this is what they've been saying is going to happen for quite a while. Okay. So again, expect that change today. Now let's get into some of these other news. There's just quite a few topics. Again, we're not going to really have a deep discussion. We're just going to kind of shotgun through them just because there's so many. Again, you can go through the different HIPs or their Helium mobile blog or anybody on Twitter just to kind of read more through it if you are interested. But let's go through some of the big ones. One of them is HIP 130 passing, and this is a really big one. This is data-only mobile hotspots. Essentially, this is making it so you don't specifically have to have these Helium-specific hardware in order to offload data. Okay, so these things will not earn proof of coverage rewards, but they will earn rewards for offloading that data, essentially. Okay. So the big thing that's here is that people with even just different Wi-Fi setups are able to actually make them these data-only mobile hotspots, and that kind of led into one of the big partnerships coming up here in a second. Okay, so this is one of the benefits. So this is bring your own fleet, data-only mobile hotspots. The bring your own fleet process activates Passpoint-enabled hardware for cellular network data transfer on Helium. In the cellular industry, these are known as brownfield deployments where existing hardware is configured to operate a new network. These onboarded fleets are represented through an on-chain rewardable entity. So this is making it so now for people with different Ubiquiti hotspots or Ubiquiti Wi-Fi systems can actually offload data for Helium. So this would be kind of big, especially for those in, again, those business environments, those business setups. This is where the benefit's going to be. So deployment requirements. Existing Wi-Fi networks must have Passpoint-enabled access points, which are typically supported by manufacturers like Ubiquiti, Cisco, and Aruba. Additionally, these access points need to integrate with the Helium mobile network to handle traffic and qualify for data transfer rewards. This integration involves network-level configurations for authentication, authorization, and accounting. So yes, pretty big change here, and what kind of the big part why this is so important is it led to this partnership with Ameriband. Okay, so they did have a pretty big partnership, and it's expanding the Helium network overnight. So today we're thrilled to announce we've partnered with Ameriband, a leader in Wi-Fi infrastructure, to expand Helium, the world's largest people-powered network. Through this partnership, the Helium network is expanding by adding Ameriband's 100,000 plus data-only hotspots, which are like mini cell towers, rapidly growing the coverage footprint across the U.S. almost overnight. Ameriband's vast network is deployed in well-known retail businesses, grocery chains, venues, and commercial locations across the country and will help drive usage to the Helium network. The Helium carrier offload is already being used by 3 major carriers in North America and has connected over 1 million phones since it launched 3 months ago. So this is something that is escalating extremely quickly. And this is why HIP 130 was such a big deal, because now it's going to expand that coverage and expand that offload like crazy. Okay, and this is going to benefit a lot of these people in these areas. So this is going to benefit American Bandwidth greatly, because now all these retail stores, these stadiums, these venues where they have, you know, their network deployed, they're able to now offload for Helium Mobile. And not just Helium Mobile specifically, but specifically where things get bullish are with these different carriers, which they still haven't announced. I'm assuming there's going to be NDAs, so we may never actually get full announcements unless those carriers want to make those announcements. Okay, which so far they haven't really come forward. There's a lot of speculation as to which ones they are. One of them being potentially AT&T, one of them potentially being T-Mobile. We don't know, and again, we're kind of waiting for official statements from them. I would think right now they're more in kind of testing phases to kind of just test it to see how it is before they make any big announcements, if they make announcements at all. Okay, so all we know is that it's happening. We can look at the data and see how many people are offloading, how much data is being offloaded, and it's growing at a pretty extreme rate. Okay, so this is overall bullish for the network and bullish for growing things, because in reality, this is the end goal. It's not to have Helium Mobile take over AT&T or anything like that. The end goal is for us to essentially be able to offload data for these service providers. Okay, this is the end goal, and this is why they're targeting this so greatly. And it's working, and it's happening, and it's crazy that it's happened this quickly. Okay, it's escalating at a pretty dramatic rate, and I fully expect the growth these next 6 months to be monumental for the network. Okay, pretty cool stuff there. Another thing to note is that they are still running the sale. I think it's not much longer. They extended it, I believe, to Halloween now. Initially, it was supposed to end like last week, I believe. Still going on for another week. They have the indoor hotspots for $175 and the outdoor hotspots for $350. So a nice little 30% reduction. For any guys who are interested, again, go on the planner, mess with the planner, see if it's an ideal area. Again, if you're in a residential area, not something I'd recommend this late in the game. A year ago, sure. Is it worth maybe trying? Potentially, just kind of depends again on your area and the likelihood of you being able to offload data. Okay, so can't really confidently say like, yeah, get it and you'll earn this amount. Again, they're quickly transitioning to just fully incentivize those who are going to actually be able to offload that data and really grow the network. And that's the goal here, right? So something to take note of there. So one thing to factor in here, though, is that because this is going to accelerate because of these cheap prices, expect that, again, it's one big pool of rewards. The more people that have these things, the smaller those POC rewards are going to get. Okay, so just that's why there has been quite a pretty much reductions almost like weekly. There's been a little bit downtrend, and this is why, right? Whenever they run these sales, it's typically what happens, which again, it goes on for another week. And then by the time they get them, and then we'll see if things chillax a little bit. But let's go on to the next thing. So that was the bulk of it. Those were some of the big ones, and this is kind of just highlighting it. This is talking about the Ubiquiti setup. They did do like a little write-up, so you guys who do have Ubiquiti. And again, specifically, this is going to benefit those in those like business areas. Not necessarily something you have at home, but if you are running a business, you know the business owner, they have a Ubiquiti setup. It is something where you can convert those to data-only hotspots, right? So pretty interesting there. And then the last big update, we're not going to get into too much just because, again, there's not a lot of clarity here, right? If anything, this kind of confused things more than anything. The only thing that it's letting us know is that they are looking to potentially change things because, again, realistically, they do have to make changes to the tokenomics here, right? Especially the way the incentives work. They have to add more things. There's a lot of things kind of missing. Let's go through some of the changes real quick. So pretty much what this is, and they kind of tease this for a bit, it's Helium v3. And as a matter of fact, this is a follow-up to the original v3. So this is v3.0.1, a refined path forward. And this is something that is going to change, but it's just kind of letting the community know that they are considering a lot of things, right? So one big thing, key refinements, number one, maintaining the current max supply, because this one is one thing that was under discussion, and they had kind of been teasing, they had been kind of asking the community, like, how do you feel about changing the max supply, changing the tokenomics, changing some of the relationships between like IoT and the mobile tokens. So this is just kind of answering some of the initial thoughts. So number one, based on community feedback, we don't think it makes sense to modify the max supply as established in the HIP 20. We recognize that changes to max supply are significant, although there are some interesting arguments on why it makes sense to do this. It doesn't seem to be the right time to do so. It may make sense to revisit this topic several years into the future, potentially after 2 halvings when our inflation rate aligns more closely with other ecosystems around 1 to 2%. Okay, so they do have a halving every August, I believe. It's every 2 years. Okay, so that's kind of what that's feeding into. So there was even talks about changing the max supply for Helium for HNT as the token. Number 2, enshrining the current HNT, IoT, and mobile token structure. The multi-token structure implemented in HIP 51 has largely been successful, and we have heard the feedback loud and clear that locking the structure of the 3 ecosystem tokens for the long term is critical to success. As such, we are not proposing any changes to the relationship between HNT, IoT, and mobile. HNT will continue to be the only token that accrues value from demand-side activities, such as data usage from the data credits, on the IoT and mobile networks. The IoT and mobile tokens will continue to be used to support supply-side growth, which again are the rewards for proof of coverage on both the IoT and the mobile side, such as hotspot deployment, boosted hexes, governance, staking, and other similar future concepts. So realistically, they do need to do stuff though. They do need to create more utility for these tokens, more actual uses, especially for the IoT token. That's one that I'm dumping all of it. I don't really see a whole lot of value in it. And I've been specifically converting it into HNT this entire time. Okay, so yes, my little IoT device is still accruing, but I'm not bullish on the token at all whatsoever and just converting it to HNT. Okay, and there are a lot of other changes. They are going to remove the HST emissions, which is something from the beginning. It's Helium staking tokens. That's a whole big old thing. So I'm not going to go into a lot of these other changes, but kind of what they're saying essentially is that expect to see some changes. And realistically, the tokenomics do kind of have to change even for the mobile side just because it does look like they are going to look further into expanding internationally, right? Which is one big benefit of going more heavy on the Wi-Fi side, because it gets rid of a lot of the red tape with CBRS, right? Especially with going international. We did see them already tease going into Mexico. We're not tease, they're already in Mexico. I could definitely see them eventually going up north, going into Canada also. Who knows where else, but right now, Wi-Fi is definitely the way to go. And realistically, if they are going to go abroad, some of the tokenomics will have to change. Okay, so to what extent, when, we don't know. As an investor, what does this do? Kind of in a sense creates more confusion, right? It's already been hard to decipher on the investment side, like which one's going to do better. Like, should I be investing in HNT as that's the one that is benefiting the most? Or should I be going into mobile because they're a smaller market cap, because that's where the potential is going to be. That's where the speculation could be, just because that's where the hype's going to be. The focus is definitely 100% more on the mobile side than anything else. And it's just been, that's where it's at, right? So, like for me personally, my strategy here, I'm just going 50-50. I'm half in HNT and half in mobile. IoT, I hold zero of. I've literally just been converting it from the get-go to HNT this entire time. Now, as far as price action goes, which has been doing better, the one that's been holding up better, obviously, has been HNT in comparison to mobile. Will that continue? Is that just for now? We don't know, but for now, I'm just keeping it 50-50. It just is kind of confusing to see which one's going to have more value. Because right now, currently, pretty much with the mobile token, people are just dumping it, right? There's not really a lot of incentive to hold other than for governance. So maybe they'll add a different kind of staking feature. Because right now, you can get rewards for staking it in order to get governance. You actually do get rewarded there. But who knows what they do in the future? It's hard to say. The only thing they're kind of making clear is that they're definitely open to changes. This is definitely going to be discussed further. It's kind of really the right time to do it. Arguably, there's not going to be a best time to do it. Realistically, they're just kind of letting you know that they are considering things. They are open to things. They are looking into things, which is something that they're going to continue to do, right? So, like we've mentioned pretty much this whole year, the one constant with Helium is just change. Both in yield, just everything, which is kind of a good thing. I know a lot of people aren't big fans of that, but I love how active things are, how quick things are happening. It's exciting, right? It's exciting to an extent. As a deployer, to an extent, does kind of suck, especially for the CBRS guys. That's where it does kind of suck. Like if you didn't get in during the Genesis phase, if you got in during the Genesis phase and you held a lot of those tokens, you were doing extremely well. If you got in late in the game, not a fun time for CBRS, right? And that's the hard part, that things are very dynamic. They're going to go where things are going, and specifically in this case, what the service providers want. Like if it ever gets to a point where they want that CBRS coverage, then they will get incentivized. But currently, the way the tech is, the way what the service providers want, that's where the focus is, okay? And then another one I didn't even make a thing is that there's a new token, right? For any guys remember that Sourceful, I'm not even going to get into much of that. Really kind of needs its own video. You can look into it. Realistically, I'm not too big on it. I wasn't really a big fan of it. I didn't even cover it here on this Helium V3 at all. But, and you can look into it if you'd like, but that is something to keep in mind, that there is kind of growth there, just because realistically they want Helium to be the token of all like networks, essentially, right? Is it kind of changing? Maybe. Who knows where they go, but again, the one constant is just going to be change, right? So we'll see how these rewards change go. I'm looking forward to it just because it is going to benefit me. It is going to suck for those people with those 430s though, but let me know in the comments, guys, especially the 7 of you guys. Please let me know in the comments how you guys are doing. Are you guys seeing similar things? How do you guys feel about all these changes? Like, are you guys bullish on this? Is this annoying? Is this crap? Is this horrible? Are we going to go from 7 of you guys down to 3, or are we going to go up to 8? Let me know in the comments, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I am out.